President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber will hear the testimony of a witness to TCW 1011 in relation to Phnom Kraul Security Center. And the testimony, the chamber will hear this testimony via video link from Ban Diem in J province. Grefye Chiesi Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals at today's proceeding, and also the preparation of the video system from Ban Diem in J. Grefye, Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present, except Mary Giro, the international lead co-lawyer for civil parties. She informed the chamber that she is absent because of personal reasons. Mr. Nguyen Chia is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his rights to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. A witness who is to testify today to TCW 1011 confirms that to the best of his knowledge, he has no relationship by blood or by law to any of the two accused, Nguyen Chia and Khieu Samphan, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. The AV unit has informed that the audio-visual system is ready, and the witness is also ready for testimony. The witness took a note already before his appearance. Thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you, Chiesi Huang. The chamber now decides on the request by Nguyen Chia. The chamber has received a waiver from Nguyen Chia dated 7 April 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his right to participate in and be present at 7 April 2016 hearing. His counsel has advised him about the consequences of this waiver, that it cannot in any account be construed as a waiver of his rights to be tried fairly or to challenge evidence presented or to admitted by this court at any time during this trial. Having seen the medical report of Nguyen Chia by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC dated 7 April 2016, who notes that Nguyen Chia has chronic back pain when he sits for long, and he has dizziness from time to time. The doctor recommends that the chamber grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nguyen Chia his request to follow today's proceeding remotely from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. AV unit personnel are instructed to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that he can follow the proceedings. That applies through the whole day. Good morning, Mr. Nyam Samnang. Are you ready? Mr. President, the AV system is ready. President, good morning, Mr. Witness. Are you ready? Witness, good morning, Mr. President. I am ready. President, what is your name, Mr. Witness? Answer, my name is Bopan Van. President, do you have the ID card already? Yes. Answer, yes. And my name is Pan Van. That is the official name. President, what about the name Kamwan? Answer, Kamwan is my birth name. President, so I will use your official name, Panwan. Is that correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. President, when were you born, Mr. Panwan? Answer, I can only recall the year when I was born. I was born in 1960. Question, where were you born? Answer, I was born in PMG Miet village, PMG Miet commune, Koh Nhai district, Mandolkiri province. Question, what about your current address? Where are you living? Answer, I am living in Malay district, Banti Minchai province. Question, what is your occupation? Answer, I am a farmer. Question, what are your parents' names? Answer, my father's name, his revolutionary name was Lang, and his original name was Van, and my mother's name is Kamkorn. Question, what about your wife? What is her name? Answer, my wife's name is Hun Vi, and I have 3 children. President, thank you. Based on the report of the greffier, you confirmed that you have no relationship by blood or by law to any of the 2 accused, Nguyen Chi and Khieu Samphan, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. Is the report correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. President, and also the greffier confirms that you have already taken a note before your appearance via video link. Is that correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. President, now I am informing you of your rights and obligations. As a witness, Mr. Panwan, in the proceedings before the chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comments which may incriminate you, right against self-incrimination. Your obligations. As a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comments to those questions may incriminate you, as the chamber just informed you of your rights as a witness. You are a witness, so you must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or parties pose to you. Mr. Panwan, have you ever provided interviews to the investigators of the OCIJ? If so, or how many times did they happen and where did they take place? Answer, I used to provide my interview at the field. President, how many times did you provide the interviews and when? Answer, I recall that I provided the interviews 3 or 4 times. Question, before your appearance, have you examined and reviewed the written records of the interviews that you provided to the investigator of the OCIJ to refresh your memory? Answer, yes, I have read some written records of the interviews. Question, to the best of your knowledge and your recollection, do the written records of the interview that you provided to the investigator of the OCIJ 3 or 4 times at your field corresponds to what you have talked to the investigator? Witness, I did not hear you well, Mr. President. President, after you read those written records of the interview a while ago, do the written records of the interviews correspond to the statement or the answer that you provided through the investigators of the OCIJ 3 or 4 times at your field? Answer: yes, they are consistent with what I told the investigator. Based on the internal Rule 91bis of the ECCC, the floor is first given to the co-prosecutors before other parties. The combined time for co-prosecutors and lead co-lawyer for civil parties is 2 sessions. You may proceed now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Counsel. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom. Mr. Witness, my name is Andrew Boyle. I'm an attorney with the Office of the Co-Prosecutors, and I'm going to be asking you some questions on their behalf today. I just want to check first, can you hear me okay, Mr. Witness?
Answer: yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Witness, a few years ago, you testified before this chamber for about 2 days in total, between the 11th and the 14th of December of 2012. So in general today, I'm going to try to avoid asking you questions to which you have already fully responded. Instead, I will either be asking you about subjects that were not covered as part of the first trial, or seeking further details or clarification on some subjects to which you've previously testified. I want to start by asking you some further questions about the K-17 office at which you worked. You testified when you were here before that you worked as a telegram decoder for your father, Lang, the secretary of Sector 105, at his office called K-17. Can you describe the layout of the K-17 office for the court? How many buildings did it consist of? How close were they to each other, etc.?
Answer: K-17 belonged to the sector.
And the K-17 office, was it just one building or was it multiple buildings?
Answer: there was one building only.
So is it correct to say that when you were working in the telegram office with your father, you were working in the same building as your father?
Answer: it was in the same building, but the building at the time was not in the same structure as the current building, and when I decoded the messages, I did it in a house, and in fact that was the steel house with the concrete on the ground floor, and for the decoders, they did their work in houses, small houses within the compound of the office.
So just to make sure I understand correctly, when you refer to K-17, you're referring to one particular building, but that there is a compound around K-17 which contained other houses that served other functions in support of the K-17 office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the compound that you refer to around the K-17 office, how much area how large was this compound? How many buildings did it comprise? And how big was it in terms of space?
ទំហំមានទំហំ
Answer. It was large. I mean, the compound was large. The area size was around 5 to 10 hectares.
The building in which your father worked, which I gather was the K-17 office itself, can you describe that particular building for us?
Answer. K-17, there was a building in K-17 for holding meetings on the peak or top of Phnom Kraul. And there were houses along the road, small houses leading to that building. And on the slope of the mountains, there were houses in the village. In fact, the building compound was within the village. And at the time, married people lived in different houses, and for single people live in respective houses with corrugated iron roof or leaves roof.
The K-17 office where your father lived, was that the office that had the meeting place that you just mentioned, or is that a separate place?
The building was used to hold regular meetings, and district committees or chief of the districts came to attend the meetings, the regular meetings within that building.
How many floors did that building have? Was it 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors?
ពីជាន់
Two-story building. The ground floor was made out of concrete, and the first floor was made out of wood.
How far was the telegram office located from the K-17 office where your father worked and where this meeting hall was?
It was about 100 meters apart.
When you were here before, you testified that you worked in the K-17 telegraph office from late 1975, sorry, I apologize, from 1974 until late 1975 or early 1976, when your sister then took over for your position and you became your father's driver. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And after that period in late 1975 or early 1976, when you became your father's driver, did you ever return to work at the telegraph office again, even for a short period?
No. I, after that time, became the driver. That was my only function.
Can you describe for the court what your functions were what your day-to-day work consisted of when you were your father's driver.
Besides driving him around, I grew crops and did the labor.
What sort of places would you drive your father to when you were his driver?
Answer. I could not recall the locations. There were many locations or places where I drove him to, but I cannot recall them well. I drove him to different districts.
Would you drive him to other buildings in the vicinity of K-17 in addition to driving him to other districts?
In fact, his office was within that K-17, so I did not drive him to that location since it was his office.
I apologize, my question was not phrased well. Would you drive him to other buildings that were nearby to Office K-17 in addition to driving him to other districts?
Answer, no.
When you were your father's driver and your father was at his office at K-17, where would you stay as if you were waiting for him, if he needed to be driven somewhere? Did you stay in office K-17 yourself, or did you stay in another building close by?
I was in a different building, but within the same compound of K-17.
And how far was that building from Office K-17?
Answer. The compound of K-17 was large, and there were different small houses within the compound, and there was also a big hall or big building within K-17, and houses were close to the meeting hall, and the distance was about 100 meters apart between the meeting hall and different small houses.
When you were here previously, you testified at length about your trip to Phnom Penh with your father when he was killed. So I won't be asking you about that event again. I do want to clarify, however, did you work as your father's driver up until the time that you left to go to Phnom Penh with your father, at which point he was killed?
Answer. I was his driver until he went to Phnom Penh.
And do you remember the month and the year that your father went to Phnom Penh for the last time?
I cannot recall the year. I cannot recall the exact date. I cannot recall. It may happen in 80 or 90, but I cannot recall it.
Let me read you a statement from your sister Han. This is OCIJ statement E3/44, English ERN 002-95164, Khmer 002-87715, and French 003-53129. This is what your sister said, Mr. Witness, quote, "They called my father to Phnom Penh in October 1977, close quote." Does that refresh your recollection that it was in October 1977 that you traveled with your father to Phnom Penh and he was killed?
I cannot recall that, but what I can recall is that I went with him perhaps in late 1976 or early 1977. It was not my younger sister, it was my older sister. Again, it was my elder sister. Her original name was Bopan and alias name was Han. That was my correction to her name, in relation to her.
Yes, that's correct. It's the elder sister that replaced you in the telegram office who I was quoting from. Can you estimate how many people worked in the K-17 office compound for us?
I do not really understand your question. You are asking about the decoders or staff, all the staff members within the K-17. For the coders, there were 2 or 3 of us, but there were staff members in different offices, in different sections in charge of education or in other fields. I need to spend quite a lot of time to explain the functions of those staff members, the structure of the leadership or member within that K-17 was different from one another.
Well, we don't have a lot of time, but I would be interested to hear if you could briefly explain to us that structure, the different units that were operating within K-17, and if you recall, or the general number or estimate number of people in total that worked in the K-17 office and the surrounding buildings.
Answer. Regarding the structure of K-17, there were different units. Education unit within K-17, there were kitchens unit, hospitality units, and units in charge of the field and transportation, grow crops, and there were vehicles transporting people to attend training sessions. So I can say that there were different units within K-17.
And are you able to estimate, taken together, how many people worked in all of these units combined, or are you not able to estimate that?
It's about 1,000 people, but this is based on my estimation, and these numbers include both elder people and young people.
And in the K-17 office building itself, the two-story building in which your father was located, can you estimate how many people worked in that building?
There were only a few people in that building, and including people who work in the kitchen, so the total number was around 20 people.
Other than people that worked in the kitchen, are you able to name any of those individuals that worked in the K-17 office with your father and tell us what their functions were?
The cadre was my father and the office chief. Other people were sent away to study at the province. For example, the deputy chief of the sector and other cadres, they simply came to stay for a while during the education sessions.
Do you remember the names of the office chief that you just mentioned, or the deputy chief, or anyone else that stayed at office K-17?
I can remember the name of the office chief. His name was Thân.
Did you, or were you aware when you were in Sector 105 of any prisons or security centers in that sector?
At that time, it was not called a prison, it was called a security center.
And what was the name of the security center?
It was called Pusapia.
How far was that security office from office K-17?
It was located far away. It was to the south of Kraul Mountain. It's about more than 10 kilometers away from K-17.
When you refer to the security office as Pusopia, are you referring to the individual who was in charge of that office?
Pusopia was the chief of the security center.
Mr. Witness, we have on our case file a site identification report. That's at E3/8057, Khmer ERN 003-71404, English 003-65-620, and French 003-71275, which contains a map of the security center that was headed by Pusopia K11, as well as the K17 office. That identification report says that that site, K11 and K17, were located, quote, approximately within 1 kilometer of one another. Does that refresh your recollection that perhaps the security center that you described was closer to K17 than the 10-kilometer distance that you mentioned?
អានឹងក៏មើលផែនទី
I need to see the map. If we talk about straight paths, both were located close each other, but at that time there were no straight road. We had to use a detour road, and it was far from each other. And as far as I can remember, the location was to the south of Phnom Kraul. And if we use a detour road, it's about 10 kilometers.
Thank you for that clarification. In addition to the security center headed by Tasopia, did you know a security office located near the Phnom Kraul Dam Reservoir under the control of Ta Leng's Battalion Number 2?
No, I did not know. Because after I left the area, and then I was not aware of what's going on over there after I left.
I'd like to quote to you from a statement you gave to the investigating judges. This is E3/58 at English ERN 002-50088, Khmer 002-39936, and French 002-83914. This is what you said, Mr. Witness, quote, "In responding to a report on the bad elements, the instructions from Office K17 was that the person be re-educated at the base for the first and second offenses and be called for re-education at the Phnom Kraul Dam Security Office for the third offense. This security office was managed by the Battalion 2 Chairman Leng," close quote. Does that refresh your memory that you in fact were aware of a security office known as the Phnom Kraul Dam Security Office under the command of Battalion 2 Chairman Leng?
I'm not familiar with the name Liang, who you just mentioned as the security guard.
Mr. Witness, my colleague is going to clarify the pronunciation of the name because I believe I may have mispronounced it.
សូមគោរពលោកប្រធាននិងលោកលោកស្រីជាក្រុមតាមរយៈការបកប្រែជាភាសាខ្មែរខ្ញុំស្ដាប់ឮគាត់បកប្រែថាលៀងតាមពិតឈ្មោះមែនតែនគឺលេងអញ្ចឹង
We have no don't know French.
ឈ្មោះ
Deputy Co-Prosecutor. The name of the person who was the chairman of Battalion 2, his name was Lang, but when I listened to the Khmer interpretation, the name became Liang.
Mr. Witness, with that clarification on the pronunciation, does that refresh your memory as to being aware of the Phnom Kral Dam Security Office under the control of this Battalion 2 chairman?
Answer, yes, I can remember. After Superior was removed and then Lang was replaced in his position.
And just to clarify for the record, are you confirming that you are aware of a separate security office near the Phnom Kral Dam, separate from the one that was headed by Tasopia?
Could you please repeat your question?
You confirmed that you were able to identify the Battalion 2 chairman. Do you recall the existence of a security office near the Phnom Kral Reservoir?
At the time I was there was only one security office. As I told you, it was not at the Phnom Kral Reservoir. As I told you, the security office, based on the real geography, it was located to the south. And there was only one security office at the time I was there. And when Tasupia was removed and then Lang was put in charge.
When you referred in your OCIJ statement to being called for re-education at the Phnom Kral Dam Security Office for the third offense, was that the security office that you were aware of? Or are you saying that you no longer recall the security office that you mentioned to the investigating judges?
It was the same security office.
Thank you for that clarification. Were you then aware of an office called K11, which was the sector military office in Sector 105?
No, I cannot recall it. I'm not familiar with K11 office. It was probably established after I left.
I'd like to read you a quote from a statement from Bun Lung Che. This is at E3/5178, English ERN 002741. 001, Khmer 001-978-62, and French 004-85-186. And this is what this individual said, Mr. Witness, quote, "The light prisoners were detained inside K11 office, and the heavy prisoners were put in Phnom Kraul, and the correctable prisoners were put at Nang. K11 was a temporary detention center, and the detainees would be sent to Nang Kilik if they were considered as correctable prisoners, and to Phnom Kraul if they were considered as heavy prisoners. The chance of survival is very rare for those who were sent to Phnom Kraul," close quote. Mr. Witness, does that refresh your memory that there was an office known as K11 that was headed by an individual in charge of the sector military, and that there was a detention center at that office?
I cannot remember it well. As I told you earlier, that when the time I was there, there were no K11. It was probably established later on after I had left.
Do you recall if individuals who were sent to Phnom Kraul prison, or did you know if a large quantity of them would survive the prison and leave the prison, or if that didn't occur at all, or if that occurred for everyone who entered the prison?
President, Mr. Civil Party, Mr. Witness, please hold on. Mr. President, I would like to object to these questions. The witness already said that that Phnom Kraul was not the security office when he was there. So the witness cannot answer to this question if the prosecutor keep asking it.
Mr. President, if I may respond, I believe that counsel misunderstood the testimony. That is not the testimony that I heard this individual say. He said that there might have been another security office in addition to Phnom Kraul that was established after he was there, but he confirmed the presence of the Phnom Kraul security office as he mentioned in his OCIJ statement. I ask that I be allowed to continue with my questioning.
President, the observation by the Kilsampon Defense Counsel is right, because the witness said that during the time he stayed there, there was no security office called K11. If your question is about the security office during the time when Ta Supir was in charge, our witness probably could give the answers. And as he emphasized several times that he was aware of only one security office, and that was Security Office Phnom Kraul. So I encourage you to reformulate your questions, and your questions should direct to something that the witness is aware of.
Thank you, Mr. President. Perhaps I misspoke stated in my question. But indeed, I was referring to Phnom Krau. Specifically, I was referring to the statement that I just read. This is the Bung Lung Che statement. And that individual stated, the chance of survival is very rare for those who were sent to Phnom Krau, close quote. Mr. Witness, to your knowledge, is this witness correct that the chance of survival at Phnom Krau was very small?
ខ្ញុំមិនបានដឹងច្បាស់
I'm not clear about this because at the time I was there, there were not many arrests and detention. And as I said, after I had left, I no longer was aware of what's going on there.
Mr. Witness, did you ever hear of a place called Trapeang Pring, located about 4 kilometers to the west of Phnom Krau on the road to Krache?
ស្ដាប់មិនច្បាស់មួយជាទីកន្លែងហ្នឹងបាទ
Could you please mention the name of the location again?
Yes, to the best of my pronunciation, the location's name is Trapeang Pring.
What are you exactly referring to?
I'm inquiring whether you have heard of a location known as Trapeang Pring at this point.
I have never heard the name of that location.
I'd like to read you a statement to see if I can refresh your memory. This is the OCIJ statement of Sal Ra E3/5222 English ERN 002-421-57-58 Khmer 002-3673-7-38 and French 002-748-21-22. And this is what this individual said, quote, the prison guards told me that those they arrested were put in that prison for only 2 to 3 days, and after that they were taken to Trapeang Pring and killed. And a little bit later on he says, Root told me that the people who were transported by trucks from various locations in that sector were mostly brought to Trapeang Pring, close quote. Mr. Witness, does that refresh your recollection of hearing about Trapeang Pring when you were in Sector 105?
At the time I was there, there was no place called Trapeang Pring. It's probably established later on.
Before I move on to another section, I'd like to ask you one question of clarification on something you said in one of your statements. This is E3/57 at English 002-905-08 Khmer 002-87705 and French 003-53104. This is what you stated, quote, "The security office of Sector 105 was in Phnom Kraol under Tasopia control, also called Tasopia's office. Van knows more about that. Van knows more than I about the security office," close quote. Can you tell the court who is the person, Van, that you are referring to?
One was my younger brother, and nowadays he lives in Chimiet village. He is better aware of the security office because he has lived in that area. For me, I lived in other area. I moved to live in other area.
Did Van live in that area in the period from 1975 to 1979? Or any part of that period?
No.
Thank you.
During that period, Wan lived in Phnom Penh, and later on he moved to live in that area.
To your knowledge, was the K-17 office itself ever used as a place to detain persons who had been arrested in 1977?
At the time I was there was no any detention at the security office.
The translation that I received had you saying that there was no detention at the security office. I want to clarify, I was asking about the K-17 office where your father worked and whether you were aware of any detention there. Can you please answer that question?
There was no detention at that time, the time when I was there. I cannot say about what happened later on after I had left.
Two witnesses who have come to this court have testified about how they were part of a large group of prisoners related or connected to an individual named Kampon, and who were arrested following the death of your father, and they were detained at that two-story building at K-17. I understand that at that time, following the death of your father, you would not have been in Sector 105. However, one of those witnesses, an individual named Net Savat, testified that about a month earlier, when your father was still alive and still in charge of the sector, he went with your father to the K-17 office. He saw division soldiers detained in shackles upstairs. I'd like to read to you what Net Savat said when he appeared. This is transcript E1/400.1 at 10:59:47. Quote, question, when was it that you saw these shackles? Was it during the month that you were at K-17? Or was it later on that you saw these shackles? Answer, it was before that time, 1 month before that time. Taham, this is a little later on, Taham took me upstairs because at that time people from actually Tassan, the chief of the division, was detained there along with other people from the division. When he took me upstairs, I saw them shackled, close quote. Does that refresh your memory of knowing about or seeing division soldiers or other prisoners held upstairs at the K-17 office?
I cannot recall that. During the time I was there, I did not see such a detention center. Usually, those people arrived at that place to attend the training session, the normal training sessions. That is what I can say.
Do you ever recall a period when large numbers of Division 920 cadre were being arrested while you were in Sector 105?
I cannot get your question. Could you repeat it?
Do you recall a period when you were in Sector 105 when there were many arrests of Division 920 cadre?
Answer. There were no arrests within K-17 when I was there. And I did not know what happened to those who were said going to attend the training sessions in vehicles.
I want to clarify my question. I'm asking if you were aware generally of a period of arrests of Division 920 cadre, not specifically of cadre who were arrested at K-17 office, but of arrests of Division 920 cadre in Sector 105.
I know that arrests happened, but I myself do not know that people were arrested and then detained at K-17. During the regime, it was widely known that a certain individual betrayed the regime and were arrested. But when I was there, I never saw the arrest occurred at K-17.
I'd like to read to you from a document, and this is document E3/877. Mr. Witness, this is a telegram that was sent to Office 870 by your father on 20 May 1977. You may recall this document because it was put to you and you were asked some questions about it when you previously testified before this chamber. The third paragraph of your father's telegram reads as follows, quote, on 13 May 1977, the sector units sacrificed one and had another severely wounded when the enemy attacked near the Tu Choi office on the Tu Sa side. This was 50 meters from the office. Our assessment is that this was not an enemy from the outside. We suspect the division henchmen of the contemptible Salm and contemptible Chin. This problem has already been reported to Comrade San. despite arrests of Unit 920s, activities continue one after the other, but we are making arrest after arrest too. Close quote. Mr. Witness, in your prior testimony, you confirmed that the Chin that's referred to in this telegram was the secretary of Division 920. I'd like to ask you first, can you tell the chamber what was the Toi Choi office that's mentioned in this telegram, and where was it located?
Choi was a military officer. However, I cannot recall his office. There was an individual named Choi. At the time, he was chief of a battalion, but I do not know his headquarters.
Do you recall what the functions of this office or of this battalion were?
Answer: the battalion was posted along the border close to Vietnam during the time.
Having heard this telegram again, do you remember a period in 1977 during which the sector was making numerous arrests of Division 920 soldiers?
I cannot recall that. What I know is that certain individuals disappeared through the announcement, and I did not see with my own eyes the disappearance of certain individuals, but I know that the arrest did happen in the period. That is what I can say.
And when you refer to certain individuals, are you referring to, at least in part, Division 920 soldiers, or just individuals generally?
It was individuals generally.
In relation to your father's statement in the telegram that despite arrests of Unit 920s, activities continue one after the other, but we are making arrest after arrest too, close quote. Do you know whether your father would have made the decision about who to arrest himself, or would he receive instructions from other individuals?
I do not know. I do not know about that.
Did Division 920 have its own security office in Mondulkiri, or were the sector security offices used?
I do not know about that. President, it is now a break time. The chamber will take a short break from now until 10:30. Mr. Nyam Somnang and Mr. Witness, now it is a break time. So the court will take a short break from now until 10:30. So you two shall be present at your place before 10:30. Do you understand that? Witness, yes, I understand. Nyam Somnang, yes.